also now member of the Eduskunta, Finland, MP Ville Skinnari. MP Skinnari, welcome back to NXT Day 3. And Senator Francisco Chauhan, member of the Senate Chile, also joins us. We really enjoyed your keynote yesterday. Now we're going to speak to you more in this panel. Welcome back to NXT. Senator Chauhan, could I have you on stage, please? And this session will be taken forward by the senior news editor of NewsX, Devika Chopra. Could I please have a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for our panel? Let's give them some encouragement. They're all set to delve into issues deep into the ocean.
Thank you so much, Uday, for that introduction. May I request all our guests to be now seated so that we can begin this extremely critical discussion. And I must give some context that we're at a very critical juncture in humanity, where there's now a consistent need for us to move towards a sustainable and a greener future. But that green future, those electronic vehicles, the batteries, everything also comes at a very high environmental cost until technologies are developed for the same. Everything that's required to move towards that greener future, those minerals are many, many kilometers down into our oceans. But our oceans also serve as the most critical part of planet Earth. And that's the larger conversation we'll have for our global audiences today. I'd like to begin this conversation with, if I can, with His Excellency Mr. Narsinghen. So I have to ask you, of course, Mauritius is a very large ocean state. How are you balancing the need for economic growth from the sea with the duty of also protecting your environment and therefore your citizens?
Yeah, in my main speech this morning, I did mention that Mauritius is a very, very small country. Small country, but I think with a vast space of ocean. We have many islands, and unfortunately, I have to confess also that up to now we have not exploited the ocean to its fullest extent. And I mentioned also in my speech this morning that Africa harbors approximately 30% of minerals in the world. And also you will note that we have not developed any technology to exploit the minerals in the seabed. And here we are relying a lot on our partners, friendly countries, traditional friendly countries, but also a lot on India. And as you know, India is doing a lot of surveillance in the Indian Ocean, helping us because we have to confess, we don't have the capacity to do the surveillance. So there is a lot of monitoring being done by India. And also in terms of research and development, you will see that here also India is doing a lot to see what we have got in the seabed. And potentially we share also a continental shelf with another neighbor, Seychelles. A lot of things are under the continental shelf. So this is where all the countries, having the sort of common-minded countries, will have to come together in order to exploit these natural resources under the seabed. But Mauritius, you see, we also putting a lot of emphasis. It is important to do mining in Africa, but what has been happening in Africa, there has been a lot of exploitation. And now the sort of partnership that we want to do with Africa is to not only to do extraction of minerals, even in our vast ocean space. We don't just want to exploit it, but to add value to it. So we, as African, Mauritius as an African country, we in the SADC, in the COMESA, in the African Union, we don't just want extraction and exploitation. We want countries to come and develop the minerals. If ever we have minerals in the Indian Ocean, we want countries to come to do a sort of equitable exploitation. This is very important. And we want things to be very sustainable. This is where we want countries to come with green vessels, not only to exploit, not only to pollute, but to do it in a very sustainable manner. This is very, very important for us.
Your Excellency, you spoke about exploitation, and I want to touch upon that. How do we then ensure that wealth from the deep seas is not limited to countries that have the technology to access it, but for everyone? How does one ensure that, for example, the perceived global north is putting its weight behind this chatter about sustainability, and it's not just fluff on paper?
So this is where now African countries and also Mauritius, we are very cautious when we are doing any type of partnership. It is not only to focus on sort of short-term gains, but to look at things in a medium term, long term, and even if other countries, they have more technology than African countries, more technology than Mauritius, we welcome countries, we welcome all nations to come and do the partnership, but as I mentioned, I would lay emphasis on that, to do it in a very equitable manner and to be fair to Africans.
Absolutely. Let me bring in Honorable Darren Bergman into the conversation as well. I'd love to understand from you. Now, Africa, as we all know, is a very rich country in terms of land-based minerals. Does deep-sea mining present itself as an exciting new opportunity, or is it perhaps a threat to the existing economy? And how do you balance going forward?
Well, thanks for the question, and I think, as my honourable colleague has said, you know, that Africa is surrounded by vast oceans and quite a few oceans, and that the opportunity exists, not just what's in the oceans and within the mines, it's the opportunities around that. And the first thing that we need to look at is the exploitation that's taken place. And I've been at conferences where the ministers in Africa have got up and said, we're increasing our trade, let's say with China. We've exported fish from China. We're getting tuna from China. And then I'd look at my app and I see that the fishing boats where they're getting their tuna is actually off the coast of the very same country that's exporting their fish from China. So that's the exploitation is actually taking place in our oceans, and then they're buying the very same fish from China. Now, I just want to tell you about the opportunity then quickly as an example, is that I got into the vehicle today by mistake. Now, someone said that when you come to India, your life will change. I got into the vehicle today with a lady by the name of Shilpa Bhupatiraju, who was born in India. This is a lady that I was meant to get into another taxi, get into this taxi, and we start talking, and you know, we're talking about empathy. And this is a professor, and this is a doctor. And she's born in India, goes to become a professor in America and a doctor, but wants to give back to the land of India. Now, India's got 1.4 billion people, an ocean around it. Africa's got a lot of people, starving, ocean around it with lots of fish, easy access to food. And we've got this organization called BRICS. We all come to the same conference. What's the opportunity, and how do we convert these opportunities into actual products? You know, it's easy to come here and give ideas, but how do you actually convert them into products? And so when the chief minister came and actually spoke and said, well, we're open for business over here, it actually, from the conversation in the taxi to the chief minister's conversation, to a conversation that took place outside with Honorable Sharma, projects are actually launched. So what becomes a talk shop actually turns into a factory. So it's not actually about the exploitation, or it's not actually about the opportunity of what's in the minerals itself, in the ocean or in the mines. It's actually what comes out from having such resources. And I think that's the power of not just what you have as assets, but the power of networking, the power of having people around you, speaking to experts, countries, well-networked people on the panels next to you.
At the same time, I just then want to understand from you, is there a possibility of ever there being a global rule coming into place which protects our oceans before, for example, commercial mining really ends up becoming, the thing of the future? It's not going to be always limited to governments or large firms. I'm assuming that's where deep sea mining is headed, where more and more commercial mining will also take place.
Look, there's no difference to protecting your oceans than there is to protecting your environment. And I think you're not going to, when people are hungry, it's going to be very hard to ask them to protect the animals before protecting themselves. As much as we'll know it as a problem, and we know climate change is a problem, I think it's very unempathetic to ask a person to look after the environment before they look after themselves, as much as we know it's a problem. So the resources, the environment, and the oceans are all the same problem. You have to give as much attention to all three issues. And I think that's everyone's problem. The one is to feed. The one problem is other people need to help feed the one side, and the other side is to then help protect the environment, or help protect the oceans, or help protect the resources. But everyone has a responsibility to play.
Okay, talking about responsibility and talking about innovation, then I want to come to Honorable Mrs. Skinnari in this. Of course, Finland is a leader of innovation. How close are we to having green technology needed to make underwater mining truly sustainable? Are we anywhere close, or in your assessment, what's the timeline on this? Because that's clearly the urgency for the next few decades. We've seen an industrial revolution take place, and today the global south is, of course, upset with the global north that you've had your share of development, and you've possibly done it at the cost of now the other nations. And yes, it may seem like a harsh assessment, but on paper it stands quite true. So I do want to understand from you, as far as technological innovation goes, in your assessment, what's the timeline for that? Because we can't go into deep sea mining with the same mindset that, oh, maybe one day we'll have a sustainable way of doing this, but for now, let's just get on with it.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you, dear colleagues, from the very key question. And if I had been here, and if I was here 10 years ago, 5 years ago, as a Minister of Trade of Finland, and representing European Union as well, the topic was a little bit different. We were talking about sustainability, multilateral system, WTO, fisheries, how we get rid of plastics in the sea. Now we talk about sea mines. I'm just giving you a strategic kind of a level comparison, what is the topic now compared to 10 or even 5 years ago. And as I said in my keynote speech 2 days ago about the new world order and trade, it very much comes to this question of technology-driven thinking. Finland, we are just updating our Arctic strategy. And now I come back to Africa or India and South America, whatever. But if we look at the Arctic, everybody's talking about Greenland, right? Arctic is not about Greenland. It's about the people. It's about the climate. And our biggest problem is still the climate change. And if I talk to my dear colleague from Denmark, my colleagues from Norway, Sweden, all over the world, I think we all agree with indigenous people, everybody. So, and now I come to my main point. Are we aiming to have some multilateralism when it comes to sea mines? Let's look at the nuclear weapons. Let's look at any system-based solution, what we have driven in this world for the last centuries. And I think sea mines now is a great example. And now I come to the technology in Finland and Arctic. If and when we want to build up security, sustainability, and environment, everything in the Arctic, we need connectivity, we need sensors, we need new technologies. That's the only solution for all of us. And at the same time, yes, we can talk about critical minerals, or we can talk about landmines, or Ottawa Agreement. Everybody remembers, great achievement for the world. Could we have similar approach with the sea mines as far as multilateral systems with small and middle-sized countries like Finland? And we, of course, turn to the superpowers, including India, that how we approach the Gulf region. What is our message to Africans? How we feed them? And therefore, I hope, and I believe that, for instance, in the European Union, we have to go through this discussion, but I'm so disappointed to European Union nowadays, how weak we are at the international fora. And this is something that I'd love to see to be proactive, and I really hope that together with my dear colleagues from India, Africa, the rest of the world, we can look at this narrative. Because at the end of the day, for Finland, pacta sunt servanda, we have to keep the agreements. We keep the agreements. We never break the agreements. And this is what Finland and the Nordics are for. And we want to pave the way here also when it comes to sea mines.
Mr. Bergman, I just want to understand then from you. You spoke about a rules-based system and multilateralism and, of course, cooperation. But we are increasingly in a geopolitical scenario where the rules-based system seems to be collapsing, and there's conflict, there's wars. What does that truly mean then for the future of sustainable development and sustainability? Is it going to be, like I said, each nation for itself, or is there still some hope of countries coming together, like-minded countries coming together to work towards one cause?
Well, when it comes to global seas, I think International Maritime Organization based in London, it still exists. We can still work via IMO. And I really appreciate countries like India, China, being there and having the dialogue. So we still have some hope and we shouldn't give up. But you're absolutely right. We don't have the old world anymore. And even countries like Finland, now we are talking that the world has changed, but we are not acting like that. And I think this topic is actually excellent, the sea mines, because we combine the technology, we combine the challenge of multilateral world, critical minerals, and at the end of the day, the security. But I once again emphasize that we have the technologies that we can do things differently. We could have even replaced landmines in Finland with technologies. We don't need old-century weapons anymore because we have the technologies. So let's go for the future, not to the last century.
Right, absolutely. On that note, let me bring in Honorable Mr. Chauhan into the conversation as well. Now, Chile has been a leading voice calling for almost a 15-year, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but a 15-year precautionary pause on deep-sea mining. But do you truly believe that we can do that to protect our oceans while there is a growing demand globally?
I agree with you. When we talk about the future of mining and oceans, we are not only discussion about natural resource. We are discussion for the governance of the planet's future. And when we created, I founded the Committee of Tenants of the Future in our country in 2010, we are working with 2,000 scientific and academic for the elements of development of our country. And one of them is we need to protect our oceans. And Chile was a player or an active role in global ocean governments. And we propose, for example, BB&G to protect the oceans, and 3/4 of our ocean is protected. and we can conciliate development with protect our ocean. It's very important. It's very important for us. And don't forget, the oceans regulate our change of climate, and it's very important for maintain the precautionary moratorium for mining in the ocean for this reason. And in my point of view, it's very important expand the independent scientific research to understand the ecosystem of the deep ocean first. Two, we must develop strong environmental safeguards and monitoring system capable of preventing irreversible damage. And third, in my personal opinion, we must ensure that global governance mechanisms are legitimate, transparent, and based on international consensus and evidence. And I agree with you. In this moment, it's very important to strong multilateralism. And we need an agreement about how we can protect our ocean.
And I have to end this conversation, but I do want to understand from your perspective, because Chile is advocating for this moratorium, for the 15-year pause, there must be then a worry about the Pacific Ocean becoming a site for unregulated, a so-called resource rush, let's call it that. Is that a worry for you? And how do you then convince the other nations on why it's critical for us to either develop the technology to make it more sustainable, deep sea mining more sustainable, or to perhaps look at a pause, or maybe look at some sort of a circular technology and better recycling?
For the moment, it's necessary a moratorium. Chile was a leader for this for the reason we need expand an independent scientific research, and you can imagine Chile is the more largest country in the world. We have a big ocean, and we protect 3/4 part of our ocean because it's very important to conciliate development with protect the ocean.
Absolutely. I've unfortunately run out of time, but I thank all of our panelists for joining us for this very important conversation. Of course, this will be the conversation of the future, certainly, and we do expect that for the next few decades we'll be now discussing, as you've also pointed out, sir, that the conversation in the past 5 years was very different, but it's now rapidly progressing towards more and more towards our oceans, and that's something that we should be thinking about today rather than tomorrow. On that note, thank you so much to all of our guests for joining us at NXT 2026. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, a round of applause for all our distinguished guests here on the panel talking about the future of mining and the oceans. Well, we'll move on to our next session. While we are at it, which is the next in deep seas, we also want to talk about what is the future of ocean logistics, supply chains, when we are talking about marine transportation. That is the future. That's where there is, in fact, transportation that brings about a lot of revenue for countries, connects countries from all across the world, brings the world closer together. And having a discussion on that, talking about commercializing it, building revenues,